Mystical traditions from the past, when the gods demanded blood. Some rituals were a whisper to the gods, others were a cry from the soul. But there were some that required more than prayer. They required sacrifice, blood, pain, and suffering. In this episode, I will take you on a journey through the darkest traditions of the world. You will meet Siberian shamans who beat a drum and consumed hallucinogenic mushrooms to travel through the afterlife. We will look into ancient India, where women would climb alive onto a pyre to die next to their dead husbands, and also to the Aztec Empire, where still beating hearts were torn from the chest and raised to the sun. I will also tell you about the mysterious voodoo ceremonies, where spirits enter people and the blood of animals opens passages between worlds, and about the northern legends, in which the back of the victim was cut open like wings, offering the body in a ritual sacrifice to the gods of war. These are not stories for the faint of heart, but if you stay until the end, you will see how far a human being would go to touch the invisible. Part 1. Shamans of Siberia. Trance, spirits, and animal sacrifices. In the frozen wastelands of Siberia, amidst the permafrost and icy winds, for centuries a faith existed in which the living and the dead lived side by side. There were no temples or books there. Instead, there were them, shamans, guides, healers, and sometimes dark intermediaries between the world of people and the world of spirits. A shaman was not born a shaman. He often went through a shocking near-death experience: illness, hallucinations, paralysis, clinical death. It was believed that the spirits chose him, breaking his body and soul, to rebuild him anew. After this experience, he was no longer an ordinary person. Ceremonies were held at night. Tribal members gathered around a fire, but the center of the action was the shaman, dressed in skins, holding a drum, dancing to the limits of his endurance. The rhythmic beating of the drum had one goal: to induce a trance. Sometimes it lasted for hours. The shaman's body writhed convulsively, his face contorted as if in pain. When he fell into a trance, he spoke with a different voice. He claimed that he was visiting the spirits of his ancestors, that his soul was floating above the worlds. This was not a performance. For the shaman, the ritual meant a serious test. It was believed that spirits did not answer for free. They needed blood. The most common victim was a reindeer. The shaman would cut its throat, cut the body open, and spread the entrails in the snow. Their arrangement was supposed to contain the answer, like a map leading to the spirit world. The blood seeped into the ground, carrying questions, requests, and supplications. Some rituals required drinking blood or eating raw meat. There were also moments when the spirit entered the shaman's body, and his own voice fell silent. It was believed that someone else was speaking then, someone from beyond this world. Part 2. The Suttee ritual, fire and death, offered in the name of marital fidelity. Imagine silence broken only by the crackling of flames. Piles of wood grow around the body of a dead man. A woman stands next to him, his wife. His gaze is fixed on the ash, his body wrapped in a white robe of mourning. He knows that in a moment there will be nothing left. No pain, no thought, no existence. The Suttee ritual is just beginning. In ancient India, especially among the upper castes, the death of a husband did not end a relationship. For some women, it was only the beginning of the greatest trial. According to tradition, a widow could enter her husband's funeral pyre and burn with him. This was considered an act of purity, fidelity, and spiritual elevation. But the reality was often more brutal. In many cases, women did not choose death on their own. Social pressure, family, and sometimes physical violence forced them into the fire. Sometimes they were drugged with opium or tied to the body of the deceased. The screams that echoed were lost in the roar of the flames. It was believed that a woman who performed Suttee cleansed herself and her husband of sins. She was said to live forever with the gods. Witnesses to such rituals described ecstasy and terror at the same time. Some claimed that women who entered the fire laughed as if the fire were not burning their bodies, but liberating their souls. For centuries, the practice was seen as sacred. Even in the 19th century, when the British ruled India, it was difficult to ban the custom. The last documented cases were in the 20th century. Was Suttee an expression of absolute love, or proof of how far a man will go in the name of religion and tradition? Part 3. Egyptian Death Rituals, the Hunger of the Soul and the Weight of the Heart. In the Nile Valley, death was not the end. It was a gateway to another world, full of dangers, monsters, and the judgments of the gods. The Egyptians believed that the soul of the deceased could not pass on peacefully without proper preparation, and this preparation meant rituals, precise, cruel, and extremely detailed. The first step was mummification, a process that could take up to 70 days. The body was opened, the entrails removed, and the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines were embalmed separately. The brain was pulled out through the nose using metal hooks. The heart, a symbol of the soul and morality, was usually left in the body. Each stage was overseen by priests who recited protective spells. After the physical preparation came the time for the spiritual journey. The deceased had to pass through the 12 gatekeepers of the underworld, overcome fiery lakes, snakes, and demons. Without the right words, taken from the Book of the Dead, the soul could be trapped in darkness forever. The most important moment, however, was the judgment of Osiris. In the Hall of Truth, the heart of the deceased was placed on a scale and compared to the feather of the goddess Maat, a symbol of truth. If the heart was heavier, full of sin, the demon Amit devoured it. The deceased disappeared forever. However, if the scales were correct, the soul could move on to the eternal fields of the Yar, the Egyptian paradise. But even then, she was threatened with hunger. That is why food, amulets, and figurines of servants were placed in the graves. Without them, the soul could wander forever, begging for food and prayers. In Egypt, death was not the end, but a trial that not everyone could survive. Part 4. Aztec Heart Offerings, Food for the Sun. At the very center of the Aztec world stood a pyramid, a monumental temple, the top of which flowed with blood. Not from a symbol, from people. Every day, at dawn, travelers, merchants, and even slaves could witness something that is incomprehensible to us. A ritual in which the heart, still beating, became a gift to the sun. The Aztecs believed that the world only exists because the gods are constantly fighting for its survival. The most powerful of them, Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun, needed energy to continue his daily journey across the sky. And the only fuel that could power him was human blood. The sacrifices were led to the top of the pyramid to the rhythm of drums and priestly chants. There, in full sunlight, 4 men seized the victim by the limbs and immobilized him on a stone slab. The priest, dressed in jaguar skin, with an obsidian knife in his hand, did not hesitate. The cut was brutal and quick. One moment he was opening the chest. The next, he was lifting the pulsating heart towards the sky, towards the god who would never fade. The bodies thrown down the stairs were not forgotten. Sometimes they were eaten. Selected warriors participated in ritual cannibalism. Other times, they were buried at the foot of the temple so that the earth, as well as the sky, would receive their share. These were not isolated cases. During the coronation of one of the Aztec rulers, over 20,000 people were sacrificed, because if the gods stopped receiving hearts, the sun might not rise. Part 5. The Voodoo Cult, Blood, Dolls, and Possession. As the sun sets over Haiti, things begin to happen in the desolate hills that are beyond the comprehension of reason. Fire dances to the rhythm of drums, women in white dresses circle in trances, and the air smells of rum, blood, and smoke. This is not fun. This is not theater. This is voodoo, one of the most misunderstood cults in the world. While many associate voodoo with dolls and witchcraft, its roots go deep, all the way back to West Africa. It's a combination of old rituals with Catholic elements that came with slaves. But beneath the surface of the religion lies something much more disturbing. Voodoo worshippers do not pray to one god. They invoke the lion or spirits, powerful beings who can help or destroy. To please them, ceremonies are held, full of music, dance, and sacrifices. Animals, most often roosters, goats, or pigeons, are ritually slaughtered. and their blood is given to the spirits. It was believed that the spirit needed blood to come to the world of the living. The culminating moment is possession. The faithful, led by a priest, Hungan or priestess Mambo, fall into a trance. A trembling body, twisted limbs, a changed voice, a gaze without pupils. It is believed that at this moment, the person's soul is displaced, and their body is occupied by the spirit of a lion. Sometimes it is a healing spirit. Other times, a malicious one who speaks a foreign language, threatens, spits, laughs hysterically. Voodoo dolls are not just a tool of curse. They are meant to represent the person to whom the ritual is directed, whether protective or destructive. The pins being stuck in are not a game. They are a symbolic redirection of pain, illness, or feelings. Part 6. Vikings, Blood Eagle, and the Path to Valhalla. The wind howls across the fjords, and the smell of blood hangs over the cliff. The stone is cold, wet from rain. And something else. The man kneels, his back exposed. He doesn't scream, he doesn't cry. There's no fear in his eyes, only pride. A warrior with an axe stands before him, not for the kill, for something more, for the sacrifice. In the Norse legends, passed down from mouth to mouth by generations of skalds, there appears a ritual that arouses terror even today, the bloody eagle. According to the story, the condemned was cut along the spine, and his ribs were bent back like wings. The lungs were pulled out to flutter in the wind like feathers. Some said that the victim was conscious until the end. Others, that it was impossible. There is no doubt, what was told about this ritual was not a metaphor for beauty, but for power and terror. The execution of the blood eagle was no ordinary execution. It was meant to be a gesture to Odin, the god of war, death, and wisdom. It was believed that only those who died in battle or were killed with honor made it to Valhalla, the hall of fallen warriors, where the feast lasts forever and death is glory. It is unknown whether this ritual was actually performed or was merely meant to frighten and arouse awe. Sagas and chronicles mention it sparsely but in horrifying detail. Does this mean it was real or too monstrous to be true? In the Viking world, there was no fear of pain. Only a meaningless death was feared. And if backs were torn open and lungs were sacrificed, it was not for revenge. It was for the gods. When we look at these rituals today, it is easy to judge. For some, it is barbarism. For others, it is a spiritual heritage. But regardless of the perspective, there is more to these traditions than just blood, fire, and pain. It is a mirror of old fears, hopes, and attempts to understand the invisible. Is it the spirits of the past that still speak to us from the darkness of temples, caves, and altars? Or is it just an echo of the demons we carry within ourselves? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want, and see you in the next episode.